Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to see all of you once again. Today is our day, and it's really exciting that Pepperdems and, of course, our good old AWDF has been able to bring all of us together once again. So, we'll be referred to as the Pacesetters. In fact, when they started, they said they're old generation. Then they refined it and said seniors, and now we are Pacesetters. Thank you very much. At least we are all going through the motions. It's a learning process, isn't it? We'll get there. Right, so let me start with you, Prof. How has your personal journey been like as a feminist?
Thank you very much, Gifty. Good afternoon, everybody, and a happy International Women's Day to all of you. What has been my personal journey? It's, I was reflecting on that, actually. I think it's part biographical, a lot by choice, and some by circumstance. Let me start with the biography. I remember growing up as a young girl and living in a patriarchal household. I became very aware of gender inequalities at a very early age. And I also took some decisions at a very early age. Oh yes. I think that by the time I was 12 or 13, I knew that I would be an independent woman, that I would never depend on a man. I read a lot. I was a voracious reader, and that also allowed me to really encounter other things, many people in my mind. When I first went to Wesley Girls, we did not have a library. We had a reading room, and I read everything. When I did not understand, I took a dictionary. So I was, precocious, you know. And then I think that the school also helped. The school environment helped. They encouraged us to be independent, critical thinkers. And then the teachers were really stimulating. I remember my French A-level classes, and we had a teacher, I will not mention the name, but he would set up these debates about whether women needed to get married, you know, jobs and things, you know. So these were, so by the time I got to university, I was already quite radical. I grew up during the Vietnam War, and because of the kind of school that we went to, all of these things were there. They were there with us. It was not, Vietnam was not far away. Vietnam was here. And then, of course, this was also the African liberation struggle, apartheid in South Africa, etc. So by the time I got to university in 1971, I became a member of the Pan-African Youth Movement. I joined political groups, and I was alert. I was assertive, you know, right from first year through university. I joined political groups. So the struggle, the broader struggle for African liberation, African unity, and the feminist struggle kind of interwove, because you also realized that as a woman you were often alone. There were not too many women, and that even within the broader movement there was also sexism, you know, so you had to struggle against all of that. So I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, you have. And I'm just wondering, Professor Brichu, when did you get actively involved in the feminism struggle?
When did I get, as Professor Menu had been talking, I've been thinking back, because then she provided some of the triggers, and I must say that I share quite a bit with her in terms of background. And I think that the home environment is really very important, because for me, my mother was the major breadwinner, and we all accepted it. And my father was not tortured by it, so we knew she set the pace. And having brothers before me also, they were the ones that were doing the cooking and everything. And so I found myself in primary school wanting to play more with boys than with girls and suffering for it, but then still persistent. But the space in the secondary school was important. But for me, when I got to the university, there was a pacesetter that really allowed me to give name to some of the questions that I've been asking myself, because being in a girls' school and I was in a girls' secondary school, we did everything for ourselves, including killing snakes. You couldn't, and changing balls and all that. And so the question about a woman and her abilities, really, we did not confront it. But we also grew up, of course, in a space that was socially conscious. And as Professor Menu was talking, for us it was apartheid. And having all manner of people coming to talk to us. And even having classmates who were on scholarship because they couldn't live in Zimbabwe, they couldn't live in South Africa, and telling us the experience and all that. So the environment was important. But when I entered university, I needed to give a name to what it is that I felt deep down in having to do something. Professor Menu was there. She had just come, and she had just taken an appointment as a research fellow at the Institute for African Studies, and got a few of us young women around her. So we used to meet in her room. Can I say where? We used to meet in her room at what was called Ford Foundation, and really her space was our space. And there were no hierarchies. I mean, we were freshers, and well, when we wanted to be polite, we say Madam T, but we called her Techua. And I mean, she was a lecturer. Of course, her position as a research fellow. In the university, we have two kinds of people. People who are supposed to do more research than teaching, we call them research fellows. And people who are supposed to do more teaching than research, we call them lecturers. And in fact, there's more pressure on research fellows because they have to publish more. I'm saying this because then it tells you how far she has come. But she provided the space and she provided the literature. So we used to meet once a week. And
sorry to cut you, Prof, but
yeah,
I get the impression that you had a platform.
Yes, we did.
To start on.
Yes, we did.
Unlike others who just had to find themselves in the fray. Professor Tichwame was there?
Yes, she did. Okay. She provided a platform, but yeah, and yeah.
I say that in those days, there were platforms in the universities,
okay.
So I think it's changed now. Maybe there are platforms now. They tend to be more along political party lines, but in those days there were broader platforms. Of course, there are political parties, there are religious ones now.
Yeah, we were also a part of a bigger platform. So then we met as women trying to interrogate deeper into feminism. And we had the literature that informed us. But we also had a bigger platform that was seeking towards broader social change. Because if you remember, ours was the time when we were fighting the most brutal military regime in Ghana. This was the Champon regime, and they would send the police to beat us, and we're there in the front line fighting in order to ensure that this unique government didn't come up. So the activism, I wouldn't say activism, the social change, what you call it, movement on the university campuses were really very strong.
Okay. Yeah. Now, I'm just wondering if I should start getting worried because I've heard Ebri girls, Wesley girls. Professor Akusi Adumako, please, which secondary school did you go? You also went to Ebri girls? Oh, Lord, have mercy. Okay. So 2 Wesley girls, 2 Ebri girls, 1 Infantsman girls. I wonder if all sisters, right? But I'm just worried about the girls' school and the feminism and the very interesting. But Professor Akusi, did you understand what you were really doing when you decided to get actively involved in the feminism struggle? Did you understand what you wanted to achieve, what you were into?
looking back, I don't think I did, but I knew that I was dissatisfied with the status quo, that things were not right and a lot of things were not fair. And I think when you are young, your sense of justice is very strong. When you realize that things are not fair and that it's based purely on your biology, you become resentful and you have options to either get buried under it and say, okay, that's life, or to be part of changing it, conversations and then actually doing things. So no, I didn't know what it would mean, but I knew that whatever that animal was, I definitely wanted to be a part of it.
Now, still with you, and I'm sorry, how did the status quo change? Because I was being schooled, just before I came up here, I was being schooled that traditionally there was nothing like housewives, and that men and women went to the farm together with their wives. So at what point did we become, you sit at home, let me go to work and come?
Yeah. I don't want us to romanticize our history and say that, once upon a time, before colonialism, everything was nice and dandy and men and women were equal. No, it was not so. But we do know that colonialism came to remove certain ways of life that were, for want of a better word, let me say complementary, in a way that didn't necessarily position us in a competitive way. But there was always a patriarchal notion that domestic work, women will have the prime role for it, at least in our society. This is not true everywhere. There are places where men, we know about the Akanda in the DRC, where men look after children, feed them, even carry them on their backs. So this notion that domestic is women is not universal, although it is more prominent than not. Let me underscore something, and I'm a person of faith, and I attend a church, although the church is not the thing. Your faith is a personal. Last year, I was having conversations with young women. Some considered themselves feminists, some did not, and I wanted them to talk to me about their journey. And I'm sure this will not be surprising to many people, but a lot of what came out in those conversations, and they did say that many things were good for them, and they recognized that they were pacesetters, but the religious spaces have become oppressive in a way that I didn't experience, when I first took on a Christian faith. And I was in a university where not everybody, espoused Christianity. Now it's like, if you don't say you're a Christian, there's something wrong with you. And in fact, one young woman's words ring in my mind. She says, even the churches have women's empowerment programs, but they are very oppressive. So I think that our religious spaces, unfortunately, have brought in new forms of domesticity and oppression, because we've got, quote unquote, men of God prescribing what a woman should be like, how she should dress, what she should do. If she doesn't know how to cook, she's not a proper woman. And I was horrified a year or two ago to learn from some graduate students of mine that there are women students who cook for their male colleagues. Now, I know when I was on campus, women sometimes cook for their boyfriends. But here are women cooking for men, and with whom they don't even have, should I even say they don't have a romantic or sexual relationship? I'm not saying that justifies a cooking agenda, but it probably makes it more understandable that you are in something together, so anyway. But here were women who were collecting chalk money whilst their male, yes, things have changed. Their male colleagues went to school and they went to markets and the guys came and they ate. And I'm like, what is going on? So in some ways, yes, some things have progressed. In other ways, because our society has made being in a relationship with a man like the highest thing you can achieve, people are subverting who they are to fit some model of a perfect woman that in any case is not possible. And That's very disturbing.
Very disturbing indeed. But listening to Professor Brichum talk about the fact that during Ichampon time, they were at the front lines, and some of them, the soldiers were saying to come after them and so on and so forth. And to borrow somebody's word, you and I were not there. What has been your struggle? Some of the challenges that you have faced as you embarked on your journey?
The big struggle has been, who are you as a feminist? A married woman, a married African Ghanaian woman. How can you even talk about equality? How can you, a married woman, even say you are a feminist? It's like the word feminist is a dirty, dirty word. Feminism is for single and married women. So what frustrated women? So what are you doing, and how can you even say this? How can you sustain your marriage? This is not the place for you. And just the getting people to even understand what you're saying, getting people to appreciate the fact that it is a partnership, women are independent, women can stand on their own, and they are human beings and not second-class citizens. Because for me, I grew up with boys, and all the women I saw around me, like Prof, were independent, powerful matriarchs. Single women, more or less single women, who were looking after their families. Who spoke? My mother spoke her mind. Any day, any time. My grandmother spoke her mind. My paternal grandmother also. So this was how I grew up. So for you to be told that now you say you're a feminist, you are too aggressive, you are too assertive, and even you get, I remember I went to GBC for a program, and the security man at the gate, he asked a question and was questioning why I was going in, and I responded. And he was like, you are a woman. And I'm sure so many of us have heard that. But you are a woman. And I said, so what? I mean, I'm answering your question. So that has been a key challenge. People, men, especially men, and even women, challenging your identity. And challenging you just because you are being yourself. And you being frustrated by the cultural norms, the social norms, and the religious norms. Like, I go to court as a lawyer and argue a case, and the next thing the prosecutor is saying is that, so you have a husband, and he will take all this, you know. So that is a very key challenge. And sometimes it's like, do I just keep quiet and conform for peace sake, or should I be and suffer all the consequences?
And Professor Tichwamenu, I'm sure this is something you've heard over the years. Women worried about how society will perceive them, how their husbands, their families, their in-laws will look at them if they should come out and declare that they are advocates. That let's forget about the word feminism. That's the demon word. So feminism or activist and be outspoken.
Well, I don't know that I've worried. I mean, it's not that I haven't confronted it. I'm aware of it. But as I say, we make choices, you know? We do have to make, yeah, my microphone is on. We do have to make choices. And yeah, you're crazy, you're one of them. Huh? That's what they say, one of them. In fact, I remember a friend of mine telling me that one of his friends was telling some young woman in Waterhall that you go on. Very soon you'll be like Tichwamenu and nobody will want to marry you. So, I mean, it's like this time is a bogey woman. It's usually a bogey man. So I think that, but seriously, I think that Ghanaians have to decide. We are in the 21st century. We don't live on an island. You know, we are very selective what we want. So when we don't want something, it's foreign. when we want it, we can wear suits in this blazing sun and forget that that is also foreign. I think that we are in the 21st century. We have a president who is the gender advocate at the African Union. Let's pull them in, let them scream, but they will come in, and it's interesting. Every man wants good things for their daughters, for their children. It's when it comes to wives and other women that they are a problem. So I must say I have never been concerned. I said at the beginning that I grew up in a patriarchal household, but I think that one of my greatest supporters was my father. He encouraged me to be anything I wanted, to study till I reached the sky. It was not a problem, When I decided I was leaving my relationship, he just told my older sister to tell me that actually I had gotten quite a lot and I couldn't have everything. So I have never been concerned. I'm not going to tell any young woman to try to conform, I am aware of these issues and I try to offer support to people. But at some point you have to be true to yourself, because you can fake it, If you are in a relationship, it has to be supportive. It has to be nurturing. It has to be something that helps you to grow, not something that brings fear or makes you cringe. And I think that this is what we must be saying to our sisters, If you have a partner, educate your partner. Let them understand, where the world is going.
So do you pepper them or you sugar them or you pamper them? That's just by the way. You didn't hear me say that. Professor Kosia, would you say that some of the issues or challenges that confronted you in those years, you still see them persisting in these days? I mean, with our young ladies who have brought us here, with the help of the support of AWDF as well, I'm sure you follow them, you know what is going on. Would you say that the dynamics have changed or is the same old issues?
I think it's like a wave. It comes and goes. So you confront certain issues, you think, been there, done that, dealt with it, then you find another generation, dealing with them in new ways. I mean, I have been surprised at can I call it a cult of domesticity? I find it, I actually find in that area that I feel like we've gone backwards a bit, because as Tichwa said, we're in the 21st century, and some of the conversations I hear about women cooking, or I'm like, and see, we live in an urban center. It's not like even you live in a rural area where the pepper and tomatoes are behind your wall and you can go and pick them and cook your soup. We live in Accra, and some of those conversations are taking place in Accra, and you're like, seriously, it's like there are maybe 48 hours in a day for a woman, but 24 for a man. So she can work some magic. And coming from people who've gone to school, and it's like, this one is not rocket science. So that's, I find more challenging, and perhaps because the millennials have shot ahead, at least the females, but many of the millennial guys are marking time. The gap between the sexes has widened, I think, and maybe when they have their panel, they will tell me if I'm wrong. What also seems not to have changed, and perhaps what is more positive about sexual harassment, and I know this sentence sounds like an oxymoron, but that younger women are, I think many are more willing to expose it and to name it. I think in our generation, sometimes you didn't even know you were being sexually harassed. It was like, okay, this is how life is. You have to see how you navigate your way out of it, balance yourself out. And I remember the first time that a senior of mine attempted to kiss me in his office. I mean, I was like, hey, Charlie, this man that I respect so much, how can I tell him he mustn't do this without offending him? And today, I think, you just give the man a slap and tell him, where do you think you are coming from? That has, and this was somebody who was known to my parents, and I said, I can't spoil his image in front of my parents. I mean, to be fair to him, when I told him that this thing is ending now in a very polite way, he never attempted again. But I think that probably there are more young women who are outspoken and will not tolerate this and will be willing to out you. But I'm just wondering, and we know that when it comes to sexual violence, we don't have the numbers. And so when we hear stories, it may just be more reporting than more incidents. But I seem to be hearing more stories of violence at the secondary and primary level. And I've been having conversations and reading a lot. And I'm wondering whether young men's addiction to porn is not a part of it. Because they are getting very unrealistic pictures about what sexual encounters should be like, and are being fed some fables about what women purportedly want and how women like to be roughed and so on. And I think that is also constructing new problematic areas that that we didn't encounter before. But the workplace is still very male-dominated, or maybe not so much male-dominated as patriarchal in people's thinking about how women should behave, how they should dress, what they should do, what they shouldn't do, and that hasn't probably changed that much.
Okay. Now I'll take this from Professor Brechu, and then after that I think we'll have audience contribution and questions, and then after that I'll come and take your conclusion on lessons learned. Oh, no, yeah, I'll have to come back to you before then, all right. Prof, looking back at your journey so far, when I say your journey, the Pacesetters journey, yes, so far, is there anything you would have done differently?
Is there anything I would have done differently? Personally, I don't think so. I don't think that I would do anything differently because I must say that I have been lucky because then there were people ahead of me setting the pace and not having to deal with some of these things. Maybe I would say that one thing I would do differently would be that I would have insisted when a senior person who was recording my name when I assumed, when I had to register as a teacher, insisted that she was going to put my husband's name and not my father's name, I would have insisted that I didn't want to do it. But I think that if you allow me just a little bit of space, it might not come up and I just want to slot it in. We've made progress in a number of ways, but we really are also moving backwards, as others have said. And one of it is the projections that we have of women in the media and what messages are going to younger persons. So that even though in terms of thinking and outlook, what we have as Ghanaian women are very different from our realities, the movies that are coming up are undermining everything. And this is where the domesticity is coming from, because the movies are entrenching it. And maybe I would talk about what I wish in terms of my life, in terms of the future, that I would want to challenge the younger ones, especially those that are in theater, that we need new models of movies that project that kind of narratives we want to turn. Because whatever we do, if we have those films and everybody is watching them, it's dangerous, and they're telling nobody's and all that. Really, they are setting the pace and they are undermining, because then they are bringing up images that we are confronting, but those images are coming back to those young girls, and that is how come they are not also very young people are getting raped, and they don't know how to, the self-protection, even though at a certain level there is. So I will talk more about wishes. But if I look back, if there's anything I want to do differently, I think that maybe I would have picked my battles differently. But I still think that I'm stronger even in the ways I picked my battles.
It's better than applause. And talking about, you know, where is General F.A. Mako of Wakanda and General Louisa Donko of Wakanda? You know, Wakanda has come in, the Black Panther, I think, is doing magic for, you know, a lot of our young people. But Nanoye, you are like a bridge, though you are part of the Pacesetters. Yes, in the middle somehow. You were not there in the, you know what I'm talking about. Good. Okay, so would you say that your generation jumped into the fray and didn't really take your time to, I say, learn from the Pacesetters, the original Pacesetters, before?
No, I wouldn't say that. And it was, I don't know whether it was a deliberate process, but in the audience I have Mrs. Dorcas Kokapia and Professor Ekuya Kwenya. Because my activism started when I was introduced to the International Federation of Women Lawyers. And you got the Solomon sisters, who are also lawyers, actually introducing me and getting me to join the FIDA legal aid legal team. And so that was how it started. And the FIDA had a deliberate objective of using the law as female lawyers to educate the women in Ghana. So there was a lot of legal literacy, simplification of laws, of PNDC Law 111. We went around the length and breadth of Ghana, you name it. Creating awareness, teaching, training, and what have you. And so at that time, it wasn't about gender empowerment. It was more about teaching the Ghanaian women to know their rights so that they could protect themselves. And that's why, like Prof is saying, we have come a long way in terms of, there's a different dynamic. We've gone back, but at least we've come forward in terms of, now people know the law and it's not an issue. But we got our older sisters, Professor Ekuya Kwenya, Dorcas Kokapia, and several others, Betty Modidrisu, to hold our hands within FIDA, because that was even a movement in itself. And I remember, Auntie Dorcas, when we went for the march, you spoke about it in 1999. We marched from Kwame Nkrumah Circle to the Christianborg Castle, where President Rawlings was the president. And we demanded explanations. They refused to see us. The chief of staff was the one who saw us, Nana Atudazi. And we demanded explanation. Why were women in Ghana dying mysteriously? We have about 25 murders. And Auntie Dorcas, I don't know that you remember, you told me to get into the middle of the crowd because I think some men also had come and were asking of me. And Auntie Dorcas told me to get into the middle. So we had our older sisters and our older female activists protecting us, but then showing us the way. So it wasn't like we jumped into the fray. They were there to guide us.
I remember I had been in journalism for just 2 years, and I was asked to come and cover it. And as a reporter, I became an activist and joined them. When I got to the office, it was a different story altogether. Whether I was sent to report or to go and, agitate, it was a whole thing. But I think we'll invite questions and contributions. So we'll give 8 minutes to the audience. Okay. So, yes, short, straight to the point.
Hello and good evening. Hello, my name is Henry. I'm Duffy, and I stand with women who, as cogitate and believe that gender disparity should be a thing of the past. I actually believe in that. But then I feel like of recent times, women have misconstrued what feminism should really stand for. They have given it a different meaning, which is it's pushing the blow. Do you get what I'm saying? I feel like feminism should be something that every man should uphold, because when we go to the workplace, to school, or whatsoever, what my male counterpart can do, I should be able to do, based on competence and not gender. But I don't think feminism means that when I go home, I shouldn't take my husband's surname, I shouldn't cook, I shouldn't do all manner of things. It's an infiltration of culture, and that's not what feminism stands for. I believe that, yeah, and I see a lot of people rolling their eyes because
okay, I think we'll get your point. Okay, yeah. So please let somebody, so we can take as many people as possible. That's her view, and the panel will react to it. So please, yes.
So I want men to know that at the end of the day, we should stand by what feminism means and push the agenda, not otherwise.
All right.
Thank you very much. My name is Oko. I'm an activist. Thank you so much to the panel for giving us that rich history. And in that, I would want to know if there were men, even if they were not at the forefront, supporting you through the whole process. I want to know if there were men and what kind of ways did they help. Thank you.
Hi, Agnes Alote. I just wanted to...
Sorry, we didn't get your name.
Agnes Alote. I wanted to just support Dufie's point in the sense that the thing with feminism that I think some people react negatively to is that sometimes you feel like you're being pushed towards a certain image of a woman versus getting the freedom to define it for yourself. So I think that each woman should define what it means to be herself and do that. If that means wearing pink and twirling, so be it. If that means flying a fighter jet, so be it. So even as Dufie was speaking, some people were laughing at her. And that's the problem. We need to support each other, even if we don't agree.
Thank you. The lady in TV Africa, teacher.
My name is Christiana Ifanyako, TV Africa. Mine is a question. What is the difference between equality and equity? And with the feminism ideology, are you fighting for equality or you want to be? I just need a clear definition of that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, this lady.
Hello, good evening. My name is Joyce Jidete and I teach at West and Minor International College. I teach cultural anthropology, so gender and women's issues are something we discuss in class all the time. And just this afternoon, I was trying to enlighten a male colleague of mine, about what feminism truly stands for, at least in my point of view. And for me, I think it's simply getting to the point in a world where women's rights are recognized as human rights. That is how I understand feminism. And based on that, one of the comments he had made, which I would want to pass on to you in the form of a question, is he thought that the original feminism stood for something like what I explained just a couple of seconds ago. But he thinks feminism has evolved into something of man-hating, frenzied, bitter, frustrated women who think female superiority should be a thing. I think it's more of women equality, I mean female superiority. No. So how do you understand?
Thank you very much. I think you can take a picture of the five of us here and show him. If we look frustrated, depressed, or bitter. Anybody else? Any more questions or contributions? The two who would like to confuse me. One of the forces, yes.
My name is Utopia, and I have a question. It was basically, how do you help someone understand what feminism is? Because I have a lot of boys in my year who, if I'm asked a question, I say I'm a feminist, and they all of a sudden have this weird reaction. And I want to get them to understand that there's nothing wrong with being a feminist, and just because I am a feminist doesn't mean I don't like you or I hate you for any reason.
All right. Thank you very much. Ms. Fossing. And then after her, one more, and then we're done. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Hello, my name is Francisca Kakra-Fossen. I've had the pleasure of interviewing three ladies towards the left, from Gifty, yourself included. The two professors, I haven't met them, but I must say that it was very thrilling for me to hear them talk about feminism, their personal journeys, and how long they've come. Let me just go straight to the point. I just wanted to ask, it appears that we're in a time where we are talking about women's issues. Good or bad, we're talking about it.
what does it mean for feminism when it appears that there are two streams of thought? There seems to be some confusion, for want of a better word, among women. Some think that feminists hate men. Others think that let's keep the traditional roles of women, and that means that we do not hate men, etc. They both have, what they believe in. Right. But what does the discord that we are seeing mean for the fight?
Okay. All right. Yes, the ladies is standing behind.
Hello, my name is Flossie Flosiazu, and mine is more of a question, really. I'm asking for comments from you, and I'm sure, like being Pacesetters, there's a lot of ground that you've broken, there's a lot of things that you've done with the pushback that you had during your prime and all that. But is there something that this generation is doing or that is happening now that has made incredible strides in the fight for women's rights and in feminism that you thought was unimaginable when you first started out?
All right, thank you very much. I know, more hands, but unfortunately, because of time, you have the opportunity to ask the question during the next panel. But, Professor Akosua, what are you looking for, equity or equality?
Can I start from the feminist thing? And I'll get to the equity or equality. And I know that if I don't, by the time it gets to the end of the line, everything would have been sorted. There are different kinds of feminists and feminisms. And somebody said there isn't, women should feel free to be what they want to be. I think that's part of the equality, that you want to be able to be who you want to be. Techua has said several times, I don't know if this is still true, that cooking relaxes her.
Yeah, but not for her.
So, the point that I wanted to make is, if somebody wants to cook or likes to cook, she should feel free to do the cooking when she wants to and how she wants to and for who she wants to, but it shouldn't be put on her. If another woman also doesn't want to cook, she should feel free. If she wants to be called Akosua Brefi or Akosua Mansa, and that's the name she wants, that should be her choice. The problem is when there is a box, and this is what a woman must look like. And if she's not in that box, then she's not a proper woman. That is the issue. That's the issue. So there isn't one kind of feminist. So when I hear there used to be a kind of feminism, but these days feminism is about hating men, there isn't one feminism. We are saying feminism, very briefly, and I try to allude to that in my talk, is really about having the freedom. Yes, women's rights are human rights. And having the freedom to be who you want to be, to live in an environment where if you want to go into politics, you are allowed to do so. If you want to go into film, you can do so. How you want to dress, who you want to be with, just like any other human being on the earth, you want that space to be who you want to be. So, for me, that is what it is, plain and simple. And so we shouldn't be restricted in our roles. And yeah, if you want to call yourself Mrs., please, feel free to call yourself Mrs. But don't insist that if somebody is married and she's not Mrs., then she's not properly married. Anyways, that type of Mrs., the British brought it to us, So if you want it and I don't want it, there was a question about, so equality is about having the space as everybody else has the space and to exercise your rights. Equity is about...
Prof, since you've taken the first one, please, can I ask for the sake of time?
I just want to say that the men have been with, some men have been with us. And I think it's important that we recognize them, both in the movement. Mauli is here. Adolf has been the coordinator of the Domestic Violence Coalition and has done amazingly. And many of us have men in our lives, partners, spouses, brothers, who we couldn't have been the feminists that we wanted to be if they had, crowded our space. And so I felt that it's important to acknowledge that.
Thank you very much. So now we know the disrespectful wives who don't want to take their husbands' names. Be warned. Prof, I don't mean to provoke you, but the equity and equality.
But before then, I just wanted to reinforce Akosia's point. You know, this business about bra burning, we don't even have enough bras to wear. So, but we must insist that there are many strands of feminism. It is not a weakness. It's like political ideologies. Somebody says they are liberal. Somebody says they are Democrat. Some people are Christian Democrats. Some people are social Democrats. Some people are market Democrats. Whatever it is. That is not the problem. That is not the problem. We cannot all be one. It's not about uniformity. But at the same time, we cannot say that you call yourself a feminist and go and beat your wife or allow yourself to be beaten. That is not feminism. That is not feminism. You know? So I think that there are some things that we cannot really, what do you say? Yeah, they are not negotiable, you know. So I think that it is important. It is a movement. Today we are celebrating International Women's Day because some women went on strike in 1908, and here we are celebrating. So I think that we need to educate ourselves about so many things. Akosia gave many pointers in a keynote address. And it relates to the point about, somebody asked, is there something that has happened recently? You know, it's so difficult because, like we've said, it's a zigzag movement. You make some progress. In fact, sometimes I'm surprised that some issues are still being debated now about cooking and all of those things. I like to cook as an expression of my creativity. And indeed, there are people who say, she can cook. Like, it's a big surprise. I don't need to apologize to anybody. I do it because I want to. I don't do it every day. I couldn't do it with all the things that I have to do. I couldn't be in some relationship where somebody is telling me where my boundaries are and which rooms are mine and that kind of crap. You know? No. But if I want to, I will do it. And I have many friends who look forward to an invitation from me because it's part of my friendship, you know, that I invite you to come and do. The issue about equality and equity. Very few people have any problems with equity. It's the equality thing that really galls them. Equality is not sameness. We don't want to be men. Thank you. I don't want to be a man. I don't want to be a man. But it's the same men who made the Constitution, who enshrined equality as a principle, who also oppose it. Today, everybody talks about the SDGs. There is a standalone goal on gender equality. Everybody subscribes to it, except when it comes to its implementation. And we're talking about the right. This morning, I was listening. There were so many programs on International Women's Day, and somebody was talking, I think it was Shamima Muslim, some study that they did, where everywhere they went, the girls were doing better than the boys, okay? And yet, at some point, it just stops. What happens? You know, what happens? This natural ability that, and I'm not being essentialist, that young women get. At some point, they are blocked. They are telling them that, you know, it is not feminine, it is not natural, it's not. We're talking about these opportunities that we want to be given to everybody, irrespective. And Gifty, let me just say, we've spoken a lot. It sounds very urban, you know? And this is, I go to the market, I've been going to Malata market sometimes, and I'm distressed at the numbers of very young children in the market, all female, carrying loads. It's like an epidemic. Every week you see them. This is a problem. And they're coming from places around the country where livelihoods cannot be sustained. So you have these child migrants coming out, waiting to be exploited. We're talking about teenage pregnancies. We're talking about adolescent pregnancies. We really need to do something about these rural areas where many of these things were happening. Because you were talking about porn films, the people who are defiling 4-year-olds, they are not watching any porn film. You know, there is something going on in our society, and we need to deal with it, really. And a lot has to do with the deprivations in our rural areas, which are also continuing in the urban areas. So equality forever.
The time is now, right? You know, with this issue about these young girls, you know, who are head porters on the market, it's very, very worrying, and I think we need to really take a look at it, because I remember the first time my husband and I went to the market, and we saw these children, and we're confused. We didn't know whether to let them help us for us to pay them, or just let them go, because if you let them go, you know they need the money. That's why they are there. And then if you give them the job to do, it's like you are exploiting them. So what do? Of course, in the long run, we just give them money to go. But sometimes you're torn between, you don't really know what to do. And it's tough. It's tough, and I think we are just taking for granted.
The minister is saying that she's launching some campaign. It's a big issue, because not only in the markets, again, when you drive at so many intersections, there are women and children. I don't know whether those children are their children, wherever they've come from, very young and very poor looking women and children who are living on the street, you know, and it's a lot. It's not just those families from Niger. These are Ghanaians, you know, and something has to happen, really. Not in a punitive, come and lure them away, but to get to the root causes, because it's an eyesore. The children are not in school. This morning, the First Lady was talking about the free SHS, and she says, yeah, for those who are able to take advantage of that opportunity. But there are so many people that when you go to the market, it's like, have they heard what is going on in Ghana? We are building not even 2 Ghanas, we are building about 4 Ghanas, and this is we are sowing the wind, and there is a whirlwind that we will reap.
Thank you very much. Prof. Rachel, do we hate men? Do feminists hate men? Is feminism about hating men?
You know,
taking
one
the power
thing,
from them?
Yeah, thanks. One thing about any struggle, you know, because struggles are about social issues, we need to give it a name, right? So we need to name the problem, and so we name it like patriarchy, right? And we need to name our struggle, right? So the struggle is called feminism. Yeah, but then we know that there are people who benefit from the system. Okay, we talk about men as a final beneficiaries, but we also know that even amongst men there are patriarchal things, and then finally also men, some men are also disadvantaged, right? But what's happening is that the only way people can undermine your struggle is to delegitimize your strongest weapon. So all this thing about feminism, and I don't want to be called a feminism, is at the heart of the struggle. As soon as you want to distance yourself from it. So what happens? We get to see more and more of images of very ultra radical feminists, and then they tell you that this is all what feminists are. It's like socialism, it's Okachi, it's like Marxism, it's Okachi. So already you don't want to be called a Marxist, you don't want to be called a socialist, you don't want to be called a feminist, and that's the end of the struggle. That is the end of the struggle. As soon as we allow this F word to be delegitimized, we've lost the struggle. We should hold it, we should protect it. So, if you allow me just a little, it was Juliana, how do you educate men about feminism? You know, for a certain kind of woman is a certain kind of man, right? And now, so what is it for this kind of man, for this kind of woman, who has to be subordinated? So you need a man who has to be strong at all times, who has to be wise at all times, who has to be sexually virile. And that's how come in Ghana, we have all kinds of alcoholic beverages. It's like impotence. Impotence. There's an epidemic of impotence in Ghana, you know? Because the worst thing that can happen to that kind of man we have created that can subordinate that woman is for him to lose his potency. So people are making all kinds of things. He has to be the strongest. He has to earn more. He should never marry someone who is older than him and all that. He should be able to buy you a car. And so if he doesn't have it and there's a public purse by him, he will dip his hand into it and all that. So now, Juliana, did I get the name right? We are telling men that that kind of heterogenetic, hegemonic, masculine men that should subordinate women is hurting men. Now in Ghana, we have fewer men than women. Right. Why? Because of all the risky behaviors men are exposed to. And then if you're a man, you shouldn't cry. You shouldn't show too much emotion. You shouldn't do housework. So men, and you should eat a certain kind of food if your wife doesn't cook food and give you fat. So what is happening to the men? They are diabetic, they are hypertensive. They can't show emotion. And so if there are any doctors here, they will tell me if I'm wrong, please let me know. And all there is. So if we go to work, and a workplace, there's a threat to someone's health. Because women get pregnant and it will show, then we say the women should go away, the men should come and do it. But then the risk will not show. It will show when they are retired. And the employer no longer has that obligation. So let the men say that the women are not weak. If it is not good for the woman, it is not good for humanity. We fight it. So we want to tackle a certain kind of masculinity and tell them that it is hurting them and they should let it go.
And tell them that it is hurting them. Finally, Nanoye. In conclusion, your take.
Well, my take is, I'll still go back to the cooking issue and how disappointed I am in all of us that in this day and age, we talk about cooking. We should be talking about girls whom we are training to be astronauts. For heaven's sake, Ghana is 61 years. And when I step out of here, I'm sure I can get wache, I can get banku, I can get yam, I can get banku and okro. We're talking about cooking. Talking about cooking, there are better things to debate about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And to add to what Nanoye just said, to quote a certain Nana Ansakwao, the kitchen has no gender. And women are not married to keep the kitchen company and because the kitchen is lonely. But for me, I'm a Christian and I like to base my conclusion on the visit of the Lord Jesus to the home of Mary and Martha, where one of them decided that she was going to cook for our Lord Jesus Christ to eat and be filled. And the other decided to sit at the feet of Jesus and listen. The kitchen-loving woman was very upset that the Lord did not tell, is it Mary or Martha? I know the story, but I've forgotten the names. Wouldn't you tell my sister to come and help me? And what did the Lord say? You will not have me here forever. So it is more than the message. It is more for me to, it's more important for you to tap into wisdom and knowledge and adding value to ourselves rather than worrying about what to cook and what to do and the bedroom, whatever. There's more to us as women than just cooking and, the rest. On that note, I say praise the Lord to all of you. Thank you.